During the Soviet Union's space exploration, there was an electrical failure in one of their space stations while it was in orbit, leading to a loss of contact with the ground station. Fortunately, at the time of this accident, there was no crew aboard the Salyut 7 space station. However, along with the power failure, the station went out of control and deviated from its orbit. This was one of the most serious problems in the Soviet Union's space history. Traveling at a speed of 27,000 kilometers per second, an uncontrolled space station was no less dangerous than a time bomb. All attempts to regain control over the station had failed, but then something happened that made the Soviet Union very proud. During the Cold War between America and the Soviet Union, both countries were engaged in demonstrating their power. This show of strength was not only costly, but also led to the invention of things that we still benefit from today, such as the internet, jet aircrafts, and global positioning satellites, GPS. In the race to demean each other in the eyes of the world, both countries took steps that were previously unimaginable, with the space race being a prime example. During this race in the 1970s, both countries launched several space stations to conduct various types of research in space. The Soviet space stations were named Salyut, while the USA named their space station program Skylab. These space stations were small and launched simultaneously. After spending a limited time in space for research, they were brought back to Earth. The competition was about who could keep their astronauts in space stations for the longest time. The rivalry was so intense that when the USA named their space crew astronauts, the Soviets refused to use this term, and instead called their space crew Cosmonauts. In the 1980s, to teach the USA a lesson, the Soviet Union decided to build a large Mir space station, a project that had already faced several delays. At that time, their Salyut 6 space station had completed its time in space. So, until the Mir space station was launched, the Soviets launched the Salyut 7 space station to maintain their presence in space. A unique feature of Salyut 7 was that it had docking ports at the front and back. With these docking ports, another spacecraft could attach to it during orbit, allowing crew rotation and delivery of supplies simultaneously. In April 1982, Salyut 7 was launched using a Proton rocket, and on 13th May, a crew was sent for a mission during which they set a new world record by staying for 211 days. Their task was to launch a 28 kg radio satellite through the space station's trash airlock. It was the first communication satellite launched from any manned space vehicle. The first year of Salyut 7 was successful, but then problems began to arise. On 9 September 1983, the cosmonauts noticed zero pressure in a fuel tank, which was abnormal as it meant the tank was completely empty. After investigation, a fuel leakage was discovered outside the space station. Since there's no atmospheric pressure in space, even a tiny hole can cause all contents to be sucked out, which is what happened with the Salyut 7's fuel tank. To prevent further damage, it was essential to seal this hole promptly. Unfortunately, the cosmonauts lacked some tools. The ground station launched another spacecraft with extra crew and necessary tools to dock with Salyut 7 for repairs. This repair is considered one of the most complex of that time, involving the cosmonauts going outside the station to weld. With special tools and cold welding, the hole in the fuel tank was finally sealed. Although this repair of Salyut 7 was impressive, upcoming difficulties would turn their relief into trouble. In 1984, the cosmonauts on Salyut 7 left the station in autopilot mode and returned to Earth via the Soyuz spacecraft. Now, the monitoring of the space station was the responsibility of the Soviet ground team, who did it remotely. A few months after the cosmonauts' return, on 11th February 1985, contact with Salyut 7 suddenly broke. Fault logs revealed that an electrical surge had occurred inside the station while it was in orbit. The ground team activated a secondary communication system to restore contact. They managed to re-establish contact with Salyut 7, but another electrical surge soon followed, severing all communication and causing the station to deviate from its orbit, a dangerous moment for the Soviets. News reached the USA, who saw this as an opportunity. The USA wanted to capture Salyut 7, using their cargo bay shuttle, and bring it back to Earth, making themselves heroes in the eyes of the world. The Soviet Union could have done the same, but unfortunately, their Buran shuttle was under construction, making the capture impossible for them. The world saw the Soviet Union as helpless in this matter. Therefore, they decided to send a crew of 2 cosmonauts to repair it. This task would have been easier if the space station was live, because its docking mechanism would automatically connect with another spacecraft. The Soviets' plan meant manually tracking the space station, orbiting at 27,000 kilometers per hour, aligning the spacecraft with it, and then manually docking, a process where even a small mistake could be fatal. But there was no other option. On 6th of June 1985, a Soyuz spacecraft was launched for Salyut 7's rescue. It was equipped with a laser rangefinder to determine the distance to Salyut 7. The cosmonauts also brought night vision goggles, as manual docking might have to be done in complete darkness. After orbiting for 2 days, the cosmonauts finally approached Salyut 7. The first thing they noticed was misaligned solar panels, indicating a complete electrical system failure. Since the spacecraft's solar panels are connected to electrical actuators that keep them oriented towards the sun, their misalignment was a clear sign. Using the laser rangefinder, the crew first aligned themselves with Salyut 7, and then matched its rotation with their spacecraft, gradually approaching the station. Finally, they successfully manually docked Soyuz with Salyut 7. Now came the moment everyone was waiting for, as it was unknown why Salyut 7 had shut down and what dangers lurked inside. When they opened the hatch after docking, they immediately felt a blast of cold air. Since Salyut 7 had lost power for a long time, its heating system was off. Inside, it was pitch dark, and everything was frozen. The temperature was 150 degrees Celsius, a condition for which the interior of Salyut 7 was not designed. The two cosmonauts wore warm clothes and opened all 3 hatches to enter Salyut 7. They had an air quality tester that showed high levels of carbon monoxide, indicating a fire had occurred. Breathing was difficult for both cosmonauts, as Salyut 7's circulation system was not working. The carbon dioxide in their breath was making the environment dangerously high. Therefore, they decided that only one cosmonaut would stay inside Salyut 7 at a time, while the other remained in the Soyuz. Supplies were also a major issue for both crew members, as they only had enough food and water for 8 days. By rationing, they could extend it to 12 days. But diagnosing and repairing Salyut 7 could take more than 12 days. Upon troubleshooting the electrical system, it was discovered that the entire station had shut down due to a single faulty sensor in the batteries, which prevented overcharging. When this sensor malfunctioned, it stopped the batteries from charging, eventually draining them completely and shutting down the system. After replacing the sensor and reorienting the solar panels, Salyut 7 miraculously came back to life and remained part of the mission for another year. At this time, the Soviet Union had also launched its largest space station, Mir. Although Salyut 7 was no longer needed, it was decided to keep it in orbit. The crew of Mir traveled to Salyut 7 via a spacecraft and made a station-to-station transfer, setting a new world record. The Soviets wanted to keep Salyut 7 in space for longer, so they moved it to a higher orbit of 475 kilometers. However, after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, due to funding issues and other problems, attention was diverted from Salyut 7. It gradually lowered its orbit until it made an uncontrolled re-entry into Earth's atmosphere and disintegrated over South America. Thus, the story of the Soviet Union's last Salyut space station came to an end.